His hands grip the cold steel of the periscope. It's 3:14 in the morning, June 6, 1944, and Major Werner Pluskett has been staring at black water for hours. Nothing. Just wind and fog. And then, something shifts on the horizon. Not one shape, not 10. Thousands. He calls it in. His own command tells him he's wrong. Here's the thing. The officer staring at the greatest invasion armada in human history was about to watch the war change while the rest of Germany slept. How does the man who saw D-Day first end up disbelieved, disputed, and turned into a movie character, all at once? The year is 1944. A decorated German major sits in a cliffside bunker above Omaha Beach, the channel stretching dark before him. He's about to become the most important witness the Germans never listened to. This is the story nobody tells from the other side of the beach. 1. The 352nd Infantry Division wasn't supposed to be at Omaha Beach. In March 1944, it was secretly redeployed from training grounds in France to a 20-kilometer stretch of Normandy coastline, and Allied intelligence never caught on. These weren't static garrison troops. They were trained, well-equipped soldiers filling positions the Allies had mapped as lightly held. When American landing craft dropped their ramps at Omaha on the morning of June 6th, the men of the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions walked directly into a defensive wall nobody knew was there. 2. Werner Pluskett was born in 1912, and by April 1944 he was already carrying one of Germany's highest combat honors. On April 13th, Adolf Hitler personally awarded him the Oak Leaves to the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross at the Obersalzberg. That is not a minor decoration. It is the Wehrmacht's second highest combat honor. Pluskett commanded the 1st Battalion of Artillery Regiment 352, with gun batteries positioned on the cliffs directly above what the Allies called Omaha Beach. Experienced, decorated, and dangerous. 3. The Atlantic Wall was Hitler's greatest propaganda project, as much as a military fortification. Stretching 2,400 miles along Europe's coastline, it packed 6.5 million mines, thousands of concrete bunkers, tank ditches, and artillery emplacements commanding every accessible beach. Hitler handed Field Marshal Rommel responsibility for finishing it. And Rommel, who had seen Allied firepower destroy his Africa Corps, threw himself in with brutal urgency. He flooded fields, planted iron obstacles in the shallows, and drove personal inspection tours at speed. He knew exactly what was coming. 4. While Rommel hardened the beaches, the Allies were running the most elaborate deception operation in military history. Operation Bodyguard, and its sub-Operation Fortitude, convinced German high command that the main invasion would strike Pas de Calais, the narrowest point of the channel. Fake radio traffic, a phantom army supposedly commanded by General Patton, double agents, and fabricated equipment parks sold the lie so thoroughly that Hitler held his panzer reserves back even after D-Day began, still waiting for the real landing that never came. 5. On the morning of June 6th, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel was not in Normandy. He was in Germany, celebrating his wife Lucy's birthday. He had left the previous day, convinced by his meteorologists that violent channel weather made any Allied landing attempt impossible for at least 2 weeks. Rommel had written, "The 24 hours preceding the invasion will be of paramount importance." He was entirely right. He simply missed them, 900 kilometers away, while the largest seaborne invasion in history crashed onto his beaches. 6. The single decision that made D-Day possible was made by one man staring at a weather report. Eisenhower's meteorologist, Group Captain James Stagg, identified a narrow window of tolerable conditions opening on June 6th. The original launch date, June 5th, had been scrubbed due to violent channel storms. Another postponement meant a 2-week delay. At 4:15 in the morning on June 5th, Eisenhower looked around the room and said, "Okay, we'll go." 5 words. The weight of that sentence shaped the rest of the 20th century. 7. Just after midnight on June 6th, over 13,000 American paratroopers jumped into darkness over Normandy. The drop was chaos. Strong winds scattered men miles from their targets. Some drowned in fields Rommel had deliberately flooded. Others landed directly in German positions. But the chaos had a strategic side effect. It flooded German command with contradictory reports across a 100-kilometer front. Nobody could identify the main thrust. That confusion, unintended, catastrophic for the Germans, and vital for the Allies, bought the beach landings critical minutes nobody knew they had. 8. By 1:30 in the morning on June 6th, German radar stations near Cherbourg were detecting anomalous contacts in the channel. Coastal patrols reported engine noise and dark silhouettes, but reports crawled upward through skeptical layers of command, dismissed as noise, reinterpreted as diversionary feints. Hitler had a standing order, no general alert for anything outside Pas-de-Calais without his personal authorization. And Hitler was asleep. His generals refused to wake him. The greatest amphibious fleet ever assembled crossed the English Channel while German high command waited for permission to react. 9. Werner Pluskat spent the night of June 5th to 6th at his forward observation post, a cliffside bunker near Saint-Honorine-de-Perte, overlooking the channel. He had been scanning the water since roughly 1 o'clock in the morning, responding to vague reports of airborne activity inland. Nothing. Fog, darkness, and wind. He reported all quiet to regiment. Then, just after 3 a.m., something at the edge of his visibility shifted. He pressed his face harder against the cold brass eyepiece of his periscope and held his breath. 10. What Pluskat saw when the fog pulled back defied rational processing. Ships, not a patrol, not a convoy, an armada, stretching horizon to horizon, filling the channel in every direction he could see. He estimated thousands of vessels, and he was not wrong. The Allied fleet comprised over 5,000 ships and landing craft, 195,700 naval personnel, carrying 156,000 soldiers toward the Normandy coast. With his eye pressed to the periscope above Omaha Beach, Werner Pluskat was looking at the end of Nazi Germany. 11. Pluskat grabbed the phone and called regimental headquarters. The words came fast. Ships, hundreds, thousands, heading directly for the coast. The duty officer asked him to confirm. Then came the question, where exactly were they heading? Pluskat's response, recorded years later by journalist Cornelius Ryan, became one of the most haunting lines of the entire war. They seemed to be heading straight for me. The officer paused. Higher command was skeptical. This sounded like the panicked report of an overwrought man. Pluskat stayed on the line. The shells began falling shortly after. 12. The failure of German command on June 6th was not one catastrophic error. It was a cascade of small ones. Rommel was gone. Hitler was asleep. His generals refused to wake him. The panzer reserves that could have pushed the Allies back into the sea sat idle, because releasing them required Hitler's personal order. When Hitler finally woke around 10 o'clock in the morning, his first reaction was that Normandy was the diversion. The real blow was still coming at Pas-de-Calais. The armored counterattack never came in time. 13. At 6:30 in the morning on June 6th, the first American landing craft ground onto Omaha Beach. What followed was among the most concentrated violence in the entire war. The 352nd Division was dug into elevated positions with clear, unobstructed fields of fire across flat, open sand. There was no cover. Men who stepped off ramps drowned. Men who reached the beach were cut down from the bluffs above. By midday, over 2,000 Americans had been killed or wounded at Omaha. Pluskat's artillery was part of the reason why. 14. The most lethal single German position at Omaha Beach was Widerstands Nest 62. From WN 62, machine gunner Heinrich Severloh, known as Hein, later claimed to have fired approximately 12,000 rounds of rifle ammunition and 400 machine gun belts in a single day. Severloh spent the rest of his life unable to escape what he had done. His position operated within the zone Pluskat's battalion supported. And it was Severlo who later struck the sharpest blow to Pluscat's legacy, stating flatly that Pluscat had not been with his unit on the morning of June 6th. 15. At 5:45 in the morning, before the first landing craft reached shore, the battleship USS Texas trained her 14-inch guns on the Normandy cliffs and opened fire. Destroyers joined in. Allied naval gunfire became the critical factor, preventing a complete American catastrophe at Omaha. Shells collapsed bunkers and silenced artillery positions. Pluscat later recalled shells impacting near his observation post, disrupting his ability to direct fire. The Atlantic Wall had been built to stop an army from the sea. Nobody had fully accounted for what a navy this powerful could do at close range. 16. In 1959, Irish journalist Cornelius Ryan published The Longest Day, a narrative account of June 6th built from over 1,000 interviews with participants on both sides of the battle. Werner Pluscat was one of them. In Ryan's telling, Pluscat became the iconic German witness, the officer who pressed his eye to the scope at dawn and watched the war arrive from the fog. The book sold millions of copies worldwide. In 1964, Pluscat himself confirmed the account on French television. As the first German officer, I witnessed the approach of the Allied flotilla. 17. The 1962 film The Longest Day, produced by Darryl F. Zanuck, was one of the most expensive black and white productions in cinema history. Werner Pluscat served as a military consultant on the film. German actor Hans Christian Blech portrayed him on screen. The scene, Blech pressing his face to the periscope, whispering his description of the fleet materializing from the haze, became the film's most iconic image. And here is the irony. Pluscat helped build the cinematic version of his own story, fully aware that parts of it had been dramatized for effect. 18. Heinrich Severlo's challenge to Pluscat's account went further than simple dispute. In his memoir WN62, Severlo suggested Pluscat was absent from his post on the morning of June 6th, possibly in Caen, or detached elsewhere from his command. Some historians raised a darker possibility, that Pluscat may have appropriated the sighting from a subordinate observer who died in the fighting that day and could never contradict him. Pluscat denied it consistently until his death in Heilbronn on June 11, 2002. The truth remains buried somewhere in the fog of that night. 19. Here is a number that tells the entire story: 2,000. That was the American casualty count at Omaha Beach by midday on June 6th. The direct result of one German division being where no Allied planner expected it. At Utah Beach, where German defenses matched Allied intelligence estimates, casualties were under 200. The undetected repositioning of the 352nd Division multiplied the Omaha death toll by a factor of 10. Military historians regard it as one of the most consequential intelligence failures of the entire Second World War. 20. Despite the slaughter, Omaha Beach did not fall. By early afternoon, small groups of Americans, leaderless, cut off from their units, acting on raw individual courage, began climbing the bluffs. Lieutenant Colonel George Taylor shouted the line that defined the entire morning. Two kinds of people are staying on this beach, the dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here. By nightfall, Omaha was secured. The Atlantic Wall, 4 years in construction, had held for less than 12 hours. 21. As June 6th ended, German command fractured further. Hitler's conviction that the real invasion was still coming at Pas-de-Calais held the 15th Army in place for weeks, thousands of men frozen while the Allies consolidated. Rommel returned to his headquarters at La Roche-Guyon and attempted to organize a counterattack, but Allied air superiority made daylight armor movement suicidal. By June 11th, all 5 Allied beachheads were connected. Over 326,000 troops and 50,000 vehicles had landed. The Normandy lodgment was permanent. There was no path back. 22. Werner Pluscat surrendered on April 23, 1945, 11 months after D-Day, alongside General Lieutenant Kurt Dittmar. to soldiers of the U.S. 30th Infantry Division at Magdeburg. He lived until June 11, 2002, dying in Heilbronn at age 89. Whether he was truly the first German to see the invasion fleet that morning, or whether the story belongs to a subordinate who never came home, he became the face of German D-Day in film and in memory. The decorated officer staring into darkness at an armada nobody in his command wanted to believe was real.